Last fuse. That one's all good. All fuses are good under here, but normally things for the engine are in the engine bay. So let's take off the back panel and have...
Imagine walking into your garage early one morning, coffee still warm in your hand, expecting to hear the sound of one of the greatest cars ever built. Instead, you turn the key, hold your breath, and hear absolutely nothing. No engine roar, no warning growl, not even a single click, just silence. Now imagine that silent car is not an ordinary sports car, but a $2 million Bugatti Veyron, one of the rarest and most advanced hypercars ever created. In that single moment, excitement turns into fear. Questions begin racing through your mind faster than the car ever could. Is it just a weak battery? Is it an electronic problem? Or has something deep inside the legendary W16 engine finally failed? For most people, fixing a broken car means calling a local mechanic and waiting a day or two for an answer. But when the badge on the front says Bugatti, nothing is ever that simple. Every part inside the Veyron is built with incredible precision. Every system depends on another system working perfectly. A tiny failure in one area can shut down the entire vehicle before anything more serious happens. That may sound frustrating, but it is exactly how Bugatti designed the car. It was built not only to deliver unbelievable speed, but also protect itself from damage whenever possible. Still, knowing that does little to calm your nerves when your dream car refuses to come to life. As the reality of the situation settles in, another thought becomes impossible to ignore. What if this repair costs more than most people spend on a house? Stories about Bugatti maintenance are already legendary. Owners have shared shocking repair bills, expensive scheduled services, and long waiting periods just to receive special parts from the factory. Suddenly, those stories no longer feel like internet rumors. They become your reality. Every minute the car sits motionless in the garage feels heavier than the last. Friends begin asking questions. Fans online want updates. Yet the truth is that nobody has any real answers. The Veyron looks perfect from the outside. Its beautiful body shines under the lights exactly as it always has. There are no signs of an accident, no smoke, no broken glass, and no leaking fluids on the floor. It looks ready to break speed records, but hidden beneath that flawless carbon fiber body is a mystery that refuses to reveal itself. The uncertainty becomes the hardest part of the entire experience. A strange noise can often point mechanics toward the problem. A warning light can provide a clue, but complete silence offers almost nothing to work with. That silence slowly turns into anxiety because every possible explanation seems more expensive than the last. You start thinking about the engineering masterpiece sitting in front of you. The Bugatti Veyron was never meant to be an ordinary car. It was created to redefine what production automobile could achieve. Its massive 16-cylinder engine for turbochargers, complex cooling systems, advanced electronics, and carefully engineered drivetrain all work together like an orchestra. If even one musician stops playing, the entire performance suffers. That incredible complexity is what makes a Veyron so special, but it is also what makes ownership so intimidating when something goes wrong. Deep down, you realize this journey is about to become much bigger than a simple repair. It is about discovering what really happens when one of the world's greatest machines suddenly stops working. It is about learning whether the experts who build it can bring it back to life. Most importantly, it is about uncovering the hidden side of hypercar ownership that glamorous social media posts rarely show. Behind every stunning photo, every high-speed run, and every admiring crowd lies a reality few people ever get to see. Owning a machine like this is not just about luxury or speed. It is about responsibility, patience, and accepting that perfection comes with a price. As the search for answers begins, one thing quickly becomes clear. Solving this mystery will require far more than a toolbox and mechanical skill. It will require the help of the very people who created this engineering marvel, and what they eventually discover will change everything. The first thing I did after realizing the Bugatti was completely unresponsive was search for the simplest explanation. Like any car owner, I hoped the problem would be something small, a weak battery, a loose connection, or perhaps a software issue that could be solved with a quick reset. It is human nature to hope for the best before preparing for the worst. Unfortunately, The Bugatti Veyron is not a normal car, and that means even the smallest problem can quickly become a complicated mystery. I carefully checked everything I could without taking the car apart. The battery appeared to have enough power, the key was working properly, and there were no obvious warning signs around the vehicle. The body was flawless. The engine bay looked as clean as ever, and there were no strange smells or leaking fluids. It almost felt as if the car had simply decided it no longer wanted to wake up. That silence became more frightening with every passing minute. The longer I looked at the car, the more I realized I was standing in front of one of the greatest engineering achievements ever built. Yet I had no idea where to begin. Unlike most performance cars, the Veyron was designed with dozens of advanced electronic systems constantly communicating with one another. Thousands of pieces of data move through the vehicle every second. Sensors monitor temperatures, fuel pressure, oil pressure, turbocharger performance, braking systems, and countless other components. If just one important system reports something unusual, the car can shut itself down to prevent a much larger disaster. From an engineering point of view, that is brilliant. From an owner's point of view, it can be terrifying because the real problem may be hidden far deeper than anyone expects. As I thought about everything that made this car so extraordinary, I also began thinking about the stories I had heard from other Bugatti owners. Some had waited months for replacement parts because each component had to match the exact specifications of their individual car. Others spoke about technicians flying in from different countries simply to inspect a vehicle. Unlike ordinary manufacturers that build hundreds of thousands of cars every year, Bugatti creates only a very small number of vehicles, and everyone receives incredible attention during production. That level of craftsmanship is exactly why these cars become legends, but it also means repairs are handled very differently. You cannot simply visit the nearest repair shop and expect them to understand a machine capable of traveling well over 250 miles per hour. Most mechanics will never even see a Bugatti in person during their entire career. The people qualified to diagnose these cars belong to a very small group of factory-trained specialists who understand every wire, every sensor, and every bolt inside the vehicle. That realization changed the way I viewed the situation. This was no longer about fixing a broken car. It had become a journey into a world very few people ever experience. Every phone call mattered. Every photograph of the engine bay might provide an important clue. Every small detail could help explain why a machine worth millions of dollars had suddenly fallen completely silent. Even before speaking with Bugatti, I knew this investigation would not end with a simple answer. Somewhere beneath the beautifully sculpted bodywork, a hidden problem was waiting to be discovered, and finding it would require patience, expertise, and perhaps a little luck. I could only hope the truth would arrive before the repair bill did, because something told me this story was about to become much bigger than anyone expected. After spending hours checking everything I could on my own, I finally accepted a difficult truth. I needed help from Bugatti itself. That decision may sound obvious, but contacting Bugatti is nothing like calling the service department for an ordinary car. There is no simple appointment system where you explain the problem and bring the vehicle in the next morning. Every Bugatti has its own history, its own records, and its own identity. Before anyone even begins discussing repairs, the company carefully verifies the car's chassis number, ownership information, service history, and previous maintenance records. This process exists for a good reason. A Bugatti Veyron is not simply another expensive vehicle. It is a handcrafted engineering masterpiece, and every example is treated with incredible care throughout its entire life. As I gathered the documents and prepared to make the call, I could already feel the pressure building. I knew the conversation ahead would determine whether this was a minor inconvenience or the beginning of a very expensive journey. When I finally reached Bugatti's service team, the questions started immediately. They wanted every detail I could remember. When had the problem first appeared? Had the car shown any warning lights before it stopped working? Was there an unusual sound during the last drive? Did I notice any strange smells, vibrations, or changes in performance? At first, the questions seemed endless, but I quickly realized each one served a purpose. The engineers were not simply collecting information. They were building a complete picture of what had happened before the car failed. Every answer I gave helped eliminate one possible cause while pointing toward another. Unfortunately, the more I answered, the more serious the conversation became. Instead of suggesting quick solutions, the specialist asked me to send detailed photographs of the engine bay, videos showing exactly what happened when I tried to start the car, and any diagnostic information that could be collected from the vehicle's electronic systems. That request alone told me this was not going to be an ordinary repair. They were investigating something much deeper than a simple electrical fault. As I gathered everything they needed, I found myself staring at the Bugatti more than ever before. It was incredible how a machine capable of producing over 1,000 horsepower could appear so calm and lifeless. From the outside, nothing looked wrong. The polished body reflected the light perfectly. The carbon fiber panels were flawless, and the wheels looked ready to launch the car down a runway at impossible speed. Yet hidden beneath that beautiful design was a problem no one could see. It reminded me how deceptive modern engineering can be. Years ago, many mechanical problems could be identified just by listening to the engine or looking under the hood. Today's hypercars are different. They rely on complex networks of computers, sensors, control modules, and software working together every second. A single fault buried deep inside that electronic network can leave an otherwise perfect machine completely unable to function. While waiting for Bugatti to study the information, my imagination began creating every possible worst-case scenario. I thought about damaged wiring, failed computers, expensive hydraulic systems, and even problems inside the legendary W16 engine itself. Every possibility seemed more frightening than the last. Friends tried to stay optimistic, telling me it was probably something simple, but I knew enough about these cars to understand that simple problems often lead to complicated repairs. Then came the moment I had been waiting for. Bugatti reviewed the first round of information and responded with a message that immediately changed the entire situation. They believed they found an important clue hidden inside the vehicle's electronic records, but before they could say anything more, they needed additional diagnostic data. That single message filled me with both hope and fear at the same time. Hope because the investigation was finally moving forward. Fear because whatever they found sounded far more serious than I had imagined. Little did I know, the next discovery would reveal that this mysterious breakdown was unlike almost anything the factory technicians normally encountered, and the journey was only beginning. As soon as I received Bugatti's reply, I knew the situation had become far more serious than I had hoped. Their message was professional and calm, but behind every carefully chosen word, I could sense genuine concern. The specialist explained that the first set of information I had sent pointed toward an unusual fault within the car's electronic management system. They were careful not to jump to conclusions because diagnosing Bugatti without physically inspecting it would be irresponsible. Still, they admitted that the symptoms did not match the common problems they usually encountered. That single statement was enough to make my heart sink. If the engineers who designed and built the Veyron believed this failure was unusual, then I knew I had to prepare myself for a long and uncertain road ahead. They instructed me to connect the car to a specialized diagnostic system capable of reading every electronic control unit inside the vehicle. Fortunately, I had access to equipment that could retrieve basic fault information, although nothing compared to the advanced tools available at the Bugatti factory. The process took time because the Veyron contains dozens of electronic modules that constantly communicate with one another. Every system, from the engine and transmission to the braking system and cooling circuits, records valuable information whenever something goes wrong. It is almost like the car keeps a diary of its own health, storing clues that trained engineers can later examine. As the diagnostic scan slowly worked its way through the vehicle, I watched the progress bar move across the screen, hoping it would reveal something simple. Instead, one fault code appeared that immediately caught my attention. I searched through technical information to understand its meaning, but the explanation only created more questions. The code pointed toward a critical part of the car's electrical architecture, an area responsible for coordinating several major systems at the same time. This was not a failed light bulb or a weak battery. It suggested that something much more important had interrupted the communication between essential components. I immediately forwarded the results to Bugatti and waited. Those next few hours felt longer than an entire week. Every notification on my phone made my pulse race because I knew the engineers were now studying the evidence in detail. Finally, the call came. This time, the conversation felt different from the beginning. Instead of speaking only with a service representative, I was connected with someone who had extensive experience working directly on Bugatti vehicles. His voice remained calm, but one sentence immediately grabbed my attention. He explained that this particular fault was extremely uncommon. In fact, during his years of working on Veyrons, he had only encountered a handful of similar cases. Hearing those words was both reassuring and terrifying. On one hand, I was finally speaking with an expert who understood exactly what he was looking at. On the other hand, knowing that even Bugatti's own technicians rarely saw this problem meant there was no simple repair guide waiting on a shelf. Every step would require careful investigation. The specialist continued explaining that electronic failures inside the Veyron often create a chain reaction. One small component can fail, sending incorrect signals through the vehicle's network. To protect the engine and other expensive parts, the onboard computers immediately disable several systems, making the car appear completely lifeless even though the original fault may involve only a single component. From an engineering perspective, the safety strategy is brilliant because it prevents catastrophic damage. But for an owner, it creates an entirely new challenge. The visible symptoms rarely reveal the true source of the problem. The car can appear to have dozens of failures when, in reality, everything begins with one hidden defect buried somewhere deep inside its complex electronic systems. As I listened carefully, I realized that finding the real cause would require much more than reading fault codes. The vehicle would almost certainly need to be transported to a Bugatti-certified facility, where factory diagnostic equipment and experienced technicians could inspect every system by hand. That meant the journey was entering a completely new stage. The mystery was no longer about identifying an error code. It was about uncovering what caused that error in the first place. Unfortunately, neither I nor Bugatti had any idea that an even bigger surprise was waiting to be discovered once the car finally reached the workshop. The next challenge was not diagnosing the Bugatti. It was getting it to the people who could actually fix it. Moving an ordinary car to a repair shop is usually a simple process. You call a tow truck, load the vehicle, and drive away. But when the vehicle is a multi-million-dollar Bugatti Veyron, nothing is simple. Every step has to be carefully planned because one small mistake during transportation could create more damage than the original fault. The factory explained that the car needed to be moved using a fully enclosed transporter designed specifically for exotic and collector vehicles. The suspension had to be secured correctly. The wheels had to be strapped down using approved mounting points. And the entire vehicle needed protection from weather, dust, road debris, and even sudden temperature changes. These precautions might sound excessive, but when a single body panel can cost as much as a luxury family car, every detail matters. Watching the transporter arrive at my home made the situation feel even more real. Until that moment, I still hoped there might be a simple solution waiting around the corner. But seeing the Bugatti slowly loaded into the enclosed trailer reminded me that my prized hypercar was now beginning a journey I never wanted it to take. The loading process itself was slow and careful. Every movement was measured. The ramps were adjusted to avoid scraping the low front bumper. Soft wheel straps replaced heavy chains. And the technicians checked every angle before the car moved even a few inches. It looked less like transporting a vehicle and more like handling a priceless piece of art. As the trailer doors finally closed, I stood there watching it disappear down the road, wondering how long it would be before I saw the car again. Days later, the Veyron arrived at the Bugatti-certified workshop, where a team of factory-trained specialists was already waiting. Unlike a normal repair shop filled with dozens of different vehicles, this facility was quiet, organized, and incredibly clean. Every technician understood that they were working on one of the most advanced production cars ever built. Before anyone reached for a wrench, they began by documenting the vehicle in extraordinary detail. Hundreds of photographs were taken. Service records were reviewed once again, and the electronic systems were connected to Bugatti's proprietary diagnostic equipment, software and hardware unavailable outside the company's certified network. This equipment could access hidden information that ordinary scanners could never see. It monitored every electronic control